can see this is going to completely. The only way to do this would be to shorten this. So
Oh, right.
there's a chance that it'll stay up.
That's a good
Probably
idea.
had a great name for this. The sagging mics.
That seems like a good solution.
That's
Should it be brought a little in front of you though?
Yeah, well,
Sasha,
it's going to be hard to get anything to work right here. Maybe I'll just buy a mic stand.
No, but if you swing,
Replace
Sasha,
it.
just swing the front, the
No,
part that's
it's
hanging.
okay. I'll try to work with it.
Okay.
Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sundara Paschanya Desadarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. I see they fixed the sound system. She Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Is that okay? I forget what time we're supposed to start that.
What time we're supposed to finish the class?
Yeah, finish the kirtan.
Oh, finish the kirtan? I mean, yeah, 6 o'clock, usually we would start the class after
What
the
time is it
kirtan
now?
ends.
It's 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
So our
my
timing
God.
is quite good, Maharaj.
Oh, okay. Just intuitive timing.
Yes.
Well, we'll see.
My watch is fast, so I wasn't sure. I didn't know what time it was.
Okay. So we're doing 8:6 today in Bhagavad-Gita, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Great verse.
Yeah, it's a very famous verse. Oh. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gananjaya Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhunam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Eshwari Vrishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. All right. So chapter 8, text 6. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam.
Yang vapi smaran bhavam
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam.
Tyajante ante kalevaram
Jajante te kalevaram.
Tyajati ante kalevaram
Jajatyante kalevaram.
Tang tam evaiti konteya
Tam tam evaiti konteya.
Tang tam evaiti konteya
Tam tam evaiti konteya.
Sadatad bhava bhavitaha
Siddhartha bhava bhavita.
Sadatad bhava bhavitaha
Siddhartha bhava bhavita.
Yang vapi smaran bhavam
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam.
Tyajatyante kalevaram
Yajatyante kalevaram.
Tang tam evaiti konteya
Tam tam evaiti konteya.
Sadatad bhava bhavitaha
Siddhartha bhava bhavita.
Yang vapi smaran bhavam
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam.
Tyajatyante kalevaram
Jajatyante kalevaram.
Tang tam evaiti konteya
Tam tam evaiti konteya.
Sadatad bhava bhavitaha
Siddhartha bhava bhavitaha. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam.
Yang vapi smaran bhavam
Jajatyante kalevaram.
Tyajatyante kalevaram
Tam tam evaiti konteya.
Tang tam evaiti konteya
Siddhartha bhava bhavitaha.
Sadatad bhava bhavitaha
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam.
Yang vapi smaran bhavam
Yajatyante kalevaram.
Tyajatyante kalevaram
Tam tam evaiti kaunteya.
Tang tam evaiti konteya
Siddhartha bhava bhavitaha.
Sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Anyone else? Yum yum
Yam yam.
whatever
Whatever.
Va'api
Vapi.
at all
At all.
Smaran
Smaran
remembering.
Remembering.
Bhavam,
Bhavam.
nature. Tyajati,
Jajati.
gives up.
Gives up.
Ante,
Ante.
at the end.
At the end.
Kalevaram,
Kalevaram.
this body.
This body.
Tam tam,
Tam tam.
similar.
Similar.
Eva,
Eva.
certainly.
Certainly.
Eti,
Eti.
gets. Konteya,
Kondeya.
O son of Kunti.
O son of Kunti.
Sada,
Sada.
always.
Always.
Tat,
Tat.
that.
That.
Bhavam,
Bhava.
state of being.
State of being.
Bhavitaha,
Bhavita.
remembering.
Remembering.
Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So we can, I guess, responsively do this. Whatever state of being one remembers
Whatever state of being one remembers
when he quits his body,
when he quits his body,
O son of Kunti,
O son of Kunti,
that state he will attain without fail.
that state he will attain without fail.
Well, the purport's not very long. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should note very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life. So in his next life, he was transferred to the body of a deer. Although as a deer, he remembered his past activities, he had to accept an animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life, one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it will be possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental or spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. Yang vapi smaran bhavam chachati ante kalevaram tam evaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So this is chapter 8, which is called Attaining the Supreme. And this chapter begins kind of in a peculiar way. Arjuna asks 8 questions. And these 8 questions revolve around 6 Sanskrit terms. Adidevam, Adibhutam, Karma, Brahma, and Adiyagya. So these 6 Sanskrit terms you might wonder where these came from. If you look at the first verse, you know, Kim Tad Brahman, Kidat Yatma, Kim, what is it? 2, 1, here we go. Kim Tad Brahma, Kim Adhyatma, Kim Karma Purushottamam, Adi Bhutam, Chikim Proktam, Adi Daivam, Kimuchyate. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? Which is Brahma, that's what that word Brahma there is. Kim Adhyatma, what is the self? What are fruitive activities? Kim Karma, Purushottama. What is this material manifestation? Adi Bhutam is the material manifestation. Adi Daivam Kimutyate, and what are the demigods, the controllers? What are these things? So Arjuna is asking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms in that verse. And then he rounds out his 8 questions in the next 2 lines on the next verse. Adi yagya katam kotra dehi smin madhusudana prayana kale chakatam geyosi niyatatmabi. Who is the Lord of sacrifice? That's Adi Yagya. And how does he live in the body? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? You know, I never thought of it before, but these two, this is like trying to understand everything in the shortest group of questions possible. Actually, this, and it's interesting that the way Krishna answers, he gives like 2, 3 word answers for each of these things. He doesn't give a long elaboration, you know. What is Brahma? He says the living being is Brahma. He says, what is the self? His nature, which is, of course, to serve Krishna. Then what are fruitive activities, or karma? And then he says, what is Adi Daivam, which is the, or Adi Bhutam, the material energy, and Adi Daivam, the demigods. Those are the 5 main topics in Sanskrit. And the final one is Adi Yagya, which is, of course, himself the Lord of sacrifice. Why do we do everything? So Krishna is the Lord of sacrifice. And where did Arjuna pull these terms out of? And if you go back to the previous chapter, which is chapter 7, you'll see that winding up chapter 7, in 29, 7:29, Krishna says, Jara marana mokshaya mam ashritya yanti ye te brahmatad vidu kritsnam adyatmam karma chakilam. So here he's used adyatma and karma, those 2 words in that line. And then Sadi Bhutadi Daivam Mam Sadi Yagyam Chaye Vidu Prayana Kale Pimam Picha Mam Te Vidur Yuta Chetasaha. So now we have Adi Daivam and Adi Bhutam and Adi Yagyam. So these words come from the previous chapter. Arjuna has heard them from Krishna, who just used them as part of his explanation of chapter 7, which is knowledge of the Supreme, knowledge of the Absolute, actually. So Krishna is explaining knowledge of him, and in wrapping it up, he uses these 6 terms: Brahma, Karma, Adi Bhutam, Adi Daivam, Adhyatma, and finally Adi Yagya. So he uses these 5 terms. And now Arjuna is asking for clarification of those terms. And as we say, Krishna explains them in basically two-word explanations. You know, he says that Adhyatma is the self, that or Brahma is the living entity. Adhyatma is the self, or the actual nature of the living entity, which is of course to serve Krishna. Then Adibhutam, Adibhutam is the material energy, this thing that we live in. Adibhutam. It's the material energy. Adidaivam is demigods, or the controllers of the various energies in this material world. And finally, we have Adiyagya, which is the Lord of the heart. So these things are essential, but the really $64 million question is the question, how can one know you at the time of death? So Krishna answers all these Sanskrit terms kind of like blump, 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 so that Arjuna knows what he means when he uses these terms in the previous chapter. And then he says, where does the Lord of Sacrifice live? And that's question 7. And he says, Krishna tells him he lives in the heart. And then he says, how can one know you at the time of death? And Krishna's answer to that is that one has to constantly think of him. He says, just engage in your prescribed duty. Ante kale chamam eva smaram muktva kalevaram yad prayati samam bhavam yati nasti atra samshaya. And whoever at the end of life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So this is what Arjuna knows, that he needs to think of Krishna. Of course, he's asked Krishna how to do it. And this is how to do it. Whatever state of one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So that's how Krishna leads up to it, this verse that we're talking about today. And then the next verse, 8:7, therefore you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So, today is the anniversary of the incorporation of ISKCON. So, at Father Duffy Square, right at this very moment, there are lots of devotees chanting a big up Hare Nam. And it's commemorating the time when Prabhupada decided, at this building right here, where we are right now, he decided to incorporate the ISKCON movement. So the ISKCON movement was established so that people could come together and get association. And by getting association, they could reassure one another that they could overcome the difficulties of everyday life and material consciousness and become fixed on Krishna. So this is what this chapter is telling us. We need to be fixed on Krishna. Why are we not fixed on Krishna? Well, obviously the reason we're not fixed on Krishna is because we have so many of our own plans. We have a plan to do this, to be there, to have this, to get around to being understood as something, and have some position, etc., etc. We have all these plans. And right as we're sitting here, there's people walking by, and they all have their plans. They have their little cell phone Qualcomm magic tablets in front of them, and they're dialing up, looking up, finding out, searching, etc., etc. And they're following their plans. But nobody ever thinks that these plans have no ultimate meaning. We do these things because everybody else is doing them. That's why we do them. We never stop to think that maybe these things don't really make any sense. We do them because everybody else did it, because our parents did it, people in our country did it, people on television do it, people on the internet do it. And it makes sense. I've said a number of times that the child comes out of the womb, and when he comes out of the womb, he discovers that some sense perceptions are pleasing and some sense perceptions are not very pleasing. So he tends to, because he notices everybody else is doing it, find those things which are more pleasing and try to figure out how to get rid or avoid experiencing those things which are not pleasing. And this comes to be his 100% full occupation. And nobody's going to challenge this. His teachers won't challenge it. His parents won't challenge it. The leaders of the community, the government, they won't challenge it. Nobody will challenge it because everybody's doing it. And nobody has an idea that there's even another option. And what could that option be? And of course that option is to focus on Krishna. But we don't want to do that, because then if we do that, maybe we'll be bored. Maybe we'll have to do things we don't really like to do that much. And so we avoid it. Even when we know about Krishna, we tend to think that there's something else that we need to do, that we have to tend to. And so most people never think of Krishna, but a few people think of Krishna sometimes. And out of those people who think about Krishna sometimes, the whole business of life should be to learn how to think of Krishna constantly. Why? So yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajante ante kalevaram, so that at the time of death we will be habituated to think about Krishna. There is an entire inner world. But in Western thinking, in Western culture, in Western mainstream philosophy, there's no place for the inner world. Nobody ever goes there, nobody talks about it, nobody thinks about it. In fact, there are people who are very afraid of it. Some people turn the television on in their house just so they won't be confronted with the inner world. My mother was like that. There's something scary about what's inside. It's dark, it's hard to see, and darkness is always terrifying in itself. And to focus the mind on anything, even if it's something we really like, in a material sense, it's hard to stay focused on it, no matter what it is. How long can you stay focused on your favorite food, or your favorite person, or your favorite television program? I mean, you can certainly stay focused on it quite a lot. But at some point, you want to think about something else. Now, most people have no experience with Krishna. There's people standing outside. And I'm trying to get them to come in. Oh, okay. So some people, they think about Krishna never at all, because they'd never even heard of Krishna. And I was just thinking about a couple of different episodes, you know. There was an episode, one devotee, a friend of mine, Mitra Sena, said that he was at a Rath Yatra, and there was a man, regular Western man, completely had no idea about Krishna consciousness, and he was watching the Rath Yatra, and he saw people fanning Prabhupada. And he turned to Mitra Sena and he said, "How do I get that guy's job?" I mean, that's how people look at it. Then there was another one that Bhagavad-Gita Swami told me, you know, this is how people view us from the outside. There was like a cowboy from Texas or something that visited the temple in San Diego. And when he visited the temple in San Diego, he saw the altar. And later on at the end of the program, he asked Bhagavad-Gita Swami, he said, "What's with the smiling rock?" You know? So you can see how far we are from who we are. You know, in the Western culture, none of this has, it's just, you know, might as well be Martians, you know. People have no connection with it. Now, there are people who have heard about Krishna, there are people who've been introduced to the philosophy and they started to see that there's some sense and some practicality in it. But still, thinking about Krishna as a full-time occupation is not an easy thing. And that's why we take vows to chant 16 rounds every day. We try to chant Hare Krishna every day. And you can chant Hare Krishna until you're blue in the face, but if you're not focused on the chanting, then it won't really connect you to the inner world. There's an entire world in there. Krishna's in there. The spiritual world's in there. In the Brooklyn Temple, they're going through the Bhagavatam, and they're at the stage where they're reading about Dhruva. And of course, Dhruva was determined to get a kingdom better than his grandfather, better than Brahma, because he was rejected by his stepmother. So Dhruva was determined for material purpose, but Narada Muni diverted him. He tried to divert him by philosophy. He said that, actually, my dear Dhruva, you are just a young boy. Your mother told you to go to the forest and there meditate, and you could meet Vishnu, and you could get whatever you wanted from him. But you're too young for that. And I think you should just go home and play like kids your age. And Dhruva said, "My dear Narada Muni, I know what you say is probably true, but I cannot, that explanation does not rest in my heart. So please tell me something else." So at that point, Narada Muni could understand that Dhruva was serious, but still he diverted Dhruva by telling him to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Dhruva was chanting a mantra which was names of God. And so Dhruva chanted, and eventually he didn't even know what was going to happen. And he was chanting, and he was kind of in a meditational mood, and suddenly it broke. And when he opened his eyes, there was Vishnu, not inside his heart, but standing in front of him. And he became completely nonplussed. He didn't know what to say. it just caught him off guard. He didn't know that that's what he was actually doing. And at that point, he had the realization that all of his effort to gain this immense kingdom was no particular use. He then was embarrassed. He said, my dear Lord, I was approaching you for broken glass, but instead I found a rarer jewel. So we hear these things, and I think that's one of the things that gets hard after a while, especially when you're a devotee for some time. You say these things over and over again. There's a kind of blasé, a kind of, sort of crusting over of our realizations. We don't think about the words we say, we don't experience them, because we have to work at focusing on Krishna. Now, what I always think is that, as I started off talking about a few minutes ago, that when the child comes out of the womb, he learns that some experiences of the senses are pleasing and some are distress-causing, or some cause boredom, or some cause fear, etc., etc. So he learns how to avoid the ones that are unpleasant and try to work on cultivating a situation where he will enjoy more of those sensations that he likes. And that makes perfect sense. And most people are doing that 24/7 throughout the day. But there's a problem. It doesn't work. It's logical. Everybody's doing it. And it seems like a perfectly reasonable way to enjoy life. But practically speaking, it doesn't work. Because everybody's doing it and very few people are happy. Everybody's doing it and very few people are happy. Now, if I tell you instead that to be happy, you have to focus your mind on thinking about Krishna, something most people have never even heard of. But if they do know about Krishna, or if they do know about God, and they try to focus, they can't do it for a few seconds at a time, because it interferes with their basic full-on plans for how to enjoy things that are pleasant and how to avoid things that are unpleasant. It conflicts with that plan. That plan takes priority. Now, the strange thing is, if I tell people that, it sounds extreme, and it sounds completely unworkable. But it works. So the other plan, plan A, where you increase the things that you like to experience and make plans for that, and you decrease things you don't like to experience and you make plans for that, that seems reasonable, but it doesn't work. However, to focus the mind constantly on Krishna, that seems unreasonable, but it does work. Which is why we're called the Hare Krishna movement. We chant Hare Krishna, and because we chant Hare Krishna, we try to not just chant Hare Krishna, but focus our mind on Krishna at the same time, hearing the sound vibration of his name. And if you actually think about it, Krishna and his name are non-different. So if you're chanting Hare Krishna attentively, Krishna's right there. But because we're not chanting Krishna's name attentively, he may not actually fully be there, or we're ignoring him even if he is. So this is the difficult part, to chant Hare Krishna and focus on Krishna. If we focus on Krishna, then very soon we'll come to realize, and I'm starting to realize that now, at 73 years old, you realize I've spent half a century in Krishna consciousness almost already. And at this point, everything is too late. You know, if I was going to go for some kind of material, whatever, you know, it's too late to do it. Too late to start a family, too late to open a business, too late to make a name for myself in the world, too late for any of this stuff. And I don't care. If I had it to do all over again, I would do it the same way. I didn't make any of those things that most people work their lives to do. But then when you think about it, just imagine that you're on your deathbed and you know within maybe an hour or 2 hours, your soul will pass from this body. At that time, you'll realize the whole thing was like a crazy dream. A lot of little impressions and stories, vignettes, all threaded together and with no real plot. You know, that the life goes from one scene to another. And when I really think about it, I'm surprised sometimes at how vivid some of my early memories are of life. You know, I remember my parents lived on 2nd Avenue, actually, up the block a ways, you know, in Spanish Harlem. And my father got a job with the United States Department of Agriculture. He did night school. And then he got the job of a meat inspector. And then our family moved from New York City to Missouri. So we flew. I remember flying on an airplane. And I don't know, I must have been like 4 or 5 years old. Why I even remember these things, that's bizarre. I don't know if everybody has these ancient memories. I remember having a Donald Duck toy that I got as a gift, you know. It was, and this little thing with little, it looked like maybe you've seen them before, kind of like those snow globes where you shake it up and the snow goes around. But this was kind of long and it had golden things in it and it went back and forth. And when we got off the airplane, I forgot my Donald Duck toy. And yeah, it was just, I remember what that felt like, you know. Of course, now it's ludicrous, but you know, why I remember it, I don't know. The places where things happen to me, they all seem like dreams now, you know, just dreams threaded together, one after another, one after another. And one of these days, my body is going to stay down and my soul is going to rise up out of it. And I'm not going to be able to go back down to it. I'm not going to be able to get back into it. It'll just rise up and I'm on to something else. I'll never come back to being this person, to being Chandra Shekhara Swami. I'll never come back to that. I'll be on to another situation. But it's my business, yam yam papi smaran bhavam chajante yante kalevaram, to always try to think of Krishna. As Krishna was saying here, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind intelligence fixed on me, surely you will attain to me without doubt. So this is a short form of Krishna consciousness, you know. Always think of Krishna, act for Krishna. So we have 9 types of devotional service. And these 9 types of devotional service all are compressed into this verse that will be next week's verse, you know, 8:7. So today we learned that whatever you think about, you will become. So spiritual life means that we learn how to think of Krishna. And the more we can think about Krishna, the more we begin to realize before we die, that moment where we no longer can do anything about it, before we die, that we are not this body, we are not this culture, we are not this persona, we are actually a servant. And we are trying to learn how to do that thing that doesn't make any sense but actually works. How to focus our lives on Krishna constantly, and the more we can do it, the more we actually transcend this material life. So I wanted to segue. We can ask the question, is there any evidence of this whole cycle of karma and reincarnation? And the fact is, yes, there is. There's an interesting story that I came across on the internet. There's two really interesting ones. One of them is about a young boy. And his name was James Leninger. And his parents were both Christians. And they grew up in Louisiana, or he grew up in Louisiana, a little boy. And he was fascinated with airplanes as a little boy. But he had these nightmares every night. He would wake up screaming. And his mother would go in, and she couldn't understand why her boy was having these episodes of trauma. And she said, "What are you dreaming?" And he said, "Oh, little man trapped, little man can't get out." And she says, "Well, trapped in what?" He said, "Airplane." So little by little, it comes out that this boy remembered a previous life of being a United States Air Force pilot in the Second World War in Japan. And he gets shot down over Chichijima. And there was a type of aircraft called a Corsair. And they had certain, during wartime, they try to do the best they can because, everything is crisis. So they didn't actually manage to make these cockpits where you could open them properly, and it would catch. And in this case, this is why he died. He crashed into the ocean, and he couldn't get out of his airplane. And so both of his parents were Christians, and the idea of reincarnation didn't register with them at all. That was not. His father particularly, he thought that this boy must be imagining something, but they weren't watching any World War II movies or anything like that. How did the little boy know about World War II? How did he know about airplanes? And not only that, he could name makes and models of aircraft. And as a little boy, he would, know details about aircraft and movements. And, his father one time wanted to prove that this was all something he was making up. So he did this long investigation. He asked him questions. He said, "Well, if you were a pilot, what was your plane?" He said, "It was a Corsair." I said, "Where did it come from?" And he said, "Well, I was stationed on an aircraft carrier called the Natoma." And the father said, "That sounds Japanese." He said, "No, it's not Japanese. It's American." And then, he did research into the internet and found out there was a Natoma Bay. How did this boy pull this name out of nowhere? He wasn't a scholar of World War II history or anything like that. And he found out that there was a group of people who would come together every year the veterans of the Natoma Bay, the people who served on the aircraft carrier and the pilots, and the boy knew their names, you know, and he said, and they knew him. So the father decided he would actually go to the meeting of these veterans of the Natoma Bay and ask them questions, claiming he was making a book about World War II. So he went to the California where they were having a meeting, and when he was interviewing these people, he asked them if they knew. The boy claimed, you know, that his name, so his name in this life was James Linenger, but in the previous life his name was James also, but it was James S. Houston. And so they knew James Houston, and he could name their Bob Greenway, he knew all their names, you know, and all this kind of thing. So the father was, you know, kind of beaten down after a while, and couldn't find any other explanation other than that, you know, how would his boy know all these different things unless he was actually this person in a previous life? So of course this didn't, there was an Indian lady that worked for NBC, and she became interested in the story. So she decided to do a special, and they interviewed him, and they interviewed the parents, and everybody was happy about it. But just before the show was going on the air, they decided to cancel it. So it never went on the air. Eventually it went on the internet, but it never went on the air. Then in Japan, NKH, the Japanese television syndicate, heard about the story, and they were completely interested in it. So they flew the whole family to Japan, and you know, they had him tell his story, and they of course translated it into Japanese, and then they went out on a boat next to Chichijima, which is where, you know, his plane had gone down. And at that point, the boy just kind of became just completely overwhelmed. He started crying uncontrollably, and he threw some flowers in the ocean. And at that point, he kind of like broke with the whole, you know, history of his past life, you know. So, you know, I don't know what other explanation people can come for that. Now, not only is that something, there's also the situation where people go through what they call past life regressions, where a person will, through hypnosis, be regressed into a past life. Now, there's a funny story about a man named Robert Snow. And Robert Snow was a police detective for the Indianapolis police department. He was a high-placed person in charge of the police, and actually he'd written many books on police procedures. He's well known in the police world. And he said that whenever, you know, he was writing his books on police procedure, he wanted to read other people's books to get a sense of, you know, whether he was a good author or not. And he happened to read a book called about reincarnation, no, past life regressions, that's what it was. He read a book about past life regressions. And so his wife knew someone who was actually doing past life regressions, and her friend said, well, what did you think about the book? And he said, well, you know, I'm a cop, so I didn't think very much about it, but it was an interesting writing style. And so she said, well, don't you think that past life regression is possible? He said, oh, no. He said that I would never be able to be regressed. My mind is too strong. I would never fall for it. I think it's only weak and suggestible people that could be regressed into a past life. So she said, well, you should try it. He said, no, I'm not going to waste my time. So her friend tried to get her, and then his wife said, well, Bob, are you afraid? And he said, well, you can't tell that to a policeman. So he had to go through with it, to prove that this was all, just some kind of, made up stuff or whatever it was. So she put him under a past life regression. And he said, well, I'll go through with this, but I know nothing's going to happen. But he brought a tape recorder because he wanted to hear what he was going to say. He didn't know whether he would remember it or not. So he brought a tape recorder. And she asked him all these questions, and she ran him through a past life. And it turns out that she ran him through one past life where he was a artist. And he remembered, being born in Missouri, and then he went to Chicago, and then later on, he lived in Paris and Italy and a few other places. And he was painting, but he never became really famous. He was not a very famous painter. And he remembered very vividly this picture of a hunchback woman that he had painted. And he hated doing portraits, but it was the only way he made any money, because he wasn't famous enough that his art would sell for big money. And the only way he made any money was people giving him money to paint somebody. He painted Mark Twain, who was actually a contemporary. He was friends with Mark Twain. He was also friends with Edgar Allan Poe and people in the late 19th century. So he remembers this whole thing. He remembers the hunchback woman. He remembers his wife dying of a blood clot. He remembers, all these different things. And then, when he comes out of it, he's really taken aback by the whole episode because he didn't think anything was going to happen at all. And he thought, well, this is all stuff, I must have seen this picture somewhere else. So he begins to look for this picture of the hunchback woman. He asks art dealers, he asks artists, he looks at all kinds of, he's a detective by profession, so he knows how to research things. So he searches everywhere. He can't find any trace of this hunchback woman picture. So he doesn't know what his name was as of the previous artist. So he does this for several years and he can't get anywhere. Then after he's given up looking for who this artist was, he and his wife take a vacation to New Orleans. And when they go to New Orleans, they visit an art gallery. And his wife likes modern art, which he hates. So he stays in the lower part of the gallery and she's up there looking at the modern art. And he's wandering around the art gallery and suddenly there it is. This painting of the hunchback woman as just exactly the way he remembers it. He couldn't find it anywhere, but there is the actual painting. And he said the hair went up on the back of his neck. He couldn't move for a few minutes, and of course the proprietor of the gallery could understand that this guy is having a relationship with this painting, so maybe he's could buy it or something. He comes over and said, what do you think of this painting? And he said, no, I'm not. And he said, I didn't buy it, but I really should have. But one thing he did was he wrote down the name of the artist, and the name was Carol Beckwith. Now he had a name that he could actually research. And then he researched the name, and he found all those things that he had said on the tape recorder, that Carol Beckwith lived at that time, that he was an artist, but he never really became famous. That, strangely enough, the one quirk of this Carol Beckwith was that he kept a diary that he wrote in every day. Every day he wrote in his diary. And somehow or other, because for whatever reason, that whole diary, some 16,000 pages of it or whatever it was on microfiche somewhere here in New York City, you know, because he died in New York City. And, you know, so he went and got the whole diary and he learned all these details, you know, about this Carol Beckwith. And he said at the end of it that, you know, I'm a cop. And that if I had this much evidence on any other case, that would be an open shut case. There would be no plea bargaining. There would be no necessity. I would get a conviction. So this is the, that, you know, and he decided to write a book about it. And the book is called Looking for Carol Beckwith. And his publisher, who actually had published all his books on police procedure, he said, don't do this, Bob. If you do it, you'll destroy your reputation as a police officer. And so he couldn't stop himself. He decided to write the book, Looking for Carol Beckwith. And sure enough, he was let go from the police department, and his publisher dropped him. But, you know, he just felt compelled to try to get the story out. So there's lots of people who have these experiences. Of course, there's Brian Weiss, who is probably the most well-known, you know, past life regressor. And he has a whole story himself of how he came into past life regressions. But even your common unbeliever, if they're regressed, they will remember a past life, you know. So we have been doing this, not one life, not two lives, not three lives, but millions of lives. So at some point, we've got to say enough is enough. Am I going to waste another life? Am I going to live another life of trying to find those things which are pleasing to my senses and getting rid of those things which are not pleasing to my senses? Or am I going to try to focus on Krishna, no matter how strange or how alien or how difficult it is? Because it is difficult. We have practiced forgetting Krishna for so many lifetimes. That's why it's difficult. We can think about Krishna every once in a while, okay. But that's not the point. You should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. So we should think of Krishna and try to focus our consciousness on Krishna. If we can always think of Krishna, then there's no question that we will not give our hearts to this dream, which will be over in 10, 20, 50, 60 years, whatever it is. The dream will be over. We'll be lying on our deathbed. We'll be ready to be pulled out of the body. And whatever we do at that point will not matter because we don't have much time left. But if we're practiced at thinking of Krishna, then there's a good chance that we will have already opened the door to that world inside where we can reach Krishna. Krishna is there when we're chanting his name. We just have to try to pay attention. And so most of us can't chant Krishna, Hare Krishna, all day long. So we have 9 processes, and we move from one process to another process to another process, so the mind can handle it. So sometimes we're thinking about Krishna, sometimes we're remembering Krishna, sometimes we're chanting about Krishna, sometimes we're doing service for Krishna, sometimes we're worshiping Krishna, sometimes we're offering prayers to Krishna. So these are different activities, but they're all different ways to always think of me. All right, so I've spoken too long. I'll leave some time for questions. Yes.
Hi, Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing tonight. It was very enlightening. I identify a lot with the past life regression type of it because I did have that experience, but it was totally spontaneous.
You had it spontaneously.
Yeah, I was in Seville for the first time in, I was for the first time in Spain in over 20 years. And I just went to this place where people have, it's a community center for flamenco,
Yeah.
okay? And all of a sudden, like, I felt like I was regressing back in time, and I just couldn't take it, and I just began to cry and have this extremely strong feeling that I had been there before.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be taken out of the place because I was just not, you know, but it was almost like I could see myself as a little gypsy girl barefoot in like 15th century, 16th century Seville, and
Uh-huh.
it just came back, and somebody had to like take me outside and help me to breathe, but because it became so vivid, so that's one thing. But which is a big reason why I'm studying flamenco.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
Are you from Spain originally or no?
No, I'm not a Spaniard. I'm from Puerto Rico. But another thing is that I have a question in regards to thinking of Krishna all the time. But, you know, we are in this world, in this material body. We have responsibilities.
That's
Some
right.
people have children, I don't, but a lot of, you know, jobs, bills to pay, challenges that life, you know, throws at us, desires that we want to, you know, and goals we want to accomplish. For me, it seems like a contradiction in the sense that it's either you think of Krishna all the time and let go of everything else and don't work and don't do anything, or not to think of Krishna, but everything just, it's like the world pulls you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like this material world just pulls you. Like at times it's like a drug, and you go into withdrawal and you have to have it right here and now, that kind of a thing. How can I reconcile those things? Because I don't want to lose being with Krishna at the time of my death, but I also have all of these things that I want to accomplish in life.
Do you chant Hare Krishna?
Not as often as I should, but
On beads, do you count?
yeah, but not as often as I should, I have to admit.
Well, that's why Prabhupada, made that the center pivot of our entire movement, is to regularly chant Hare Krishna. And this is hard to do. If you carve out the time, it seems like your whole world will collapse. You know, you've got somebody like me. I don't do any kind of work. I'm a bum completely. You know, but somehow I live. Somehow. At any rate, by just chanting Hare Krishna, believe it or not, your world won't cave in. But for most people, you have to take it gradually, you know. And what you do is you give more of your time and heart, energy and thinking to Krishna. And gradually, as you give more, you realize that you're not really losing anything, and your world is not collapsing. Things are still going on somehow or other. And that the whole idea that we have something material to accomplish here is just the big, 1,000-foot poster of the material world. It's being given to everybody. And as you're right, Arjuna is asking, Kim tad Brahma, Kim adhyatma, Kim karma purushottama, like, what is this Brahman, what is karma, what is the self, and also adibhutam, the material world. So the material world is definitely designed to pull us in the wrong direction. because everybody's doing the wrong thing. So 99.9% of people are doing the wrong thing. It's natural. That's why Prabhupada started ISKCON, to get people away, a chance to associate with people who didn't think like that, at least some of the time. And some people can move faster than others, and, but if you make the effort, you'll find that you didn't lose anything, and that it is a big dream at the time of death, and you'll realize it's a bunch of separate little vignettes or stories threaded together. And what was the point? Usually there isn't any point. But if you're thinking about Krishna, then you realize that you're going to that world that you've been practicing for your whole life. You know, so the more you can practice, the better off you are. And one day you'll be forced there. You never know how soon or how late that will be. It could be tomorrow, or it could be in 100 years, or whatever it is. You know, so that's the nature of the material world. So by degrees, we learn to give more of our lifetime, heart, energy, and money to Krishna. And as we do that, we become more involved with Krishna. And then Krishna peeps through. Every once in a while, you begin to experience Krishna. And if you make an effort to chant Krishna's name regularly, and you do it with attention, it'll happen very fast. You don't even have to give up so many material things. You'll just lose your taste for it. You know, like I was talking about this, losing my Donald Duck toy. You know, that's not an issue for me now. You know, it's kind of funny. You know, but when I was 4 or 5, it was a big deal. Yeah. So it's just the nature. Oh, I forgot to give the audience mic. Yeah.
So the little, when you were a little boy, that Donald Duck toy, when you lost it, you were leaving your home behind. You were losing your home.
You're right.
So it was like a symbolic, like you felt that grief, you know, but you actually had lost something. So that's probably why you remember.
I think I was missing the Donald Duck toy more than I was missing New York.
Okay.
I remember as a little kid looking out the back window of our apartment and thinking, this looks like hell. I don't know why I thought that, you know, but...
But also, you know, so Arjuna's in that situation.
Right.
He has to do his duty in life, and Krishna doesn't let him just sit down and
Right, meditate.
Java, you know. But the difference is that Arjuna really is aware of Krishna all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, if we were to go into the battle and do our dharma, but we would forget about Krishna immediately and get caught up. So it's like,
and that's the big difference.
how do we be
Arjuna
like
was
Arjuna?
right next to Krishna, and they were
Right.
best friends. They were cousins. You know.
Give
they-
it.
You know.
it's not, I don't think it's really working.
It is working.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the difference.
It's not.
that-
It doesn't amplify you. It just records you.
I see.
That's the big difference. Arjuna and Krishna were actually related. They were like cousins or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
They were constantly together, and that's a big. Sometimes I gotta admit, I get jealous of Arjuna. I do, because of that. I do. I'm sorry.
Well, you can also have that relationship, but you have to work toward it. You know, there's nothing to stop any of us from being a friend of Krishna or a lover of Krishna or a parent of Krishna. There's nothing.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, we all are in some relationship with Krishna. But right now, we love this dream more than we love Krishna.
Exactly. And that's why we concentrate more.
That's
on-
why we give more attention to it, we give more time to it, we give more effort to it. But one day, if we keep chanting, we'll start to hear, even in our own mind, how stupid that is, you know, and we start to lose our attachment, just like, we lose our attachment for anything as we grow out of it, you know. There's an interesting story, I meant to tell it, but I forgot about it until now, that in the Gita Mahatmya, there's a book called the Gita Mahatmya, which explains the glories of the Bhagavad-Gita. And this is Lord Shiva talking to his wife, Parvati. And she says, please tell me the glories of the Bhagavad-Gita. And so Lord Shiva gives a story for each chapter. And for chapter 8, which is this chapter that we're into today, which is called the, Attaining the Supreme. The story is that there was a Brahmana in South India. And he was, a completely rotten person. He drank and he never did any kind of pious activity. And one day, he drank so much liquor that it started to come out of his mouth. And he got dysentery, and he couldn't be cured, and a few days later he passed away. And then he became a palm tree. He was promoted from human life to becoming a palm tree. Now, this, I forgot what the name of the city was where this occurred, but at any rate, there were two, a husband and wife, who were Brahma Rakshasas. That means that they were powerful ghosts. And they were wandering in the world, and ghosts are always very disturbed and very hungry, because they can't eat basically anything. Things they can eat are very disgusting. I won't talk about it right now, but that's where in Oriental culture you get this idea of hungry ghosts, so this Brahmana and his wife stopped under that palm tree where the Baba Sharma, where this Baba Sharma had died and become a palm tree. And while they were there, his wife turned to him, into her husband, and she said, "Why are we Brahma Rakshasas? How do we get out of this situation?" And her husband said, "Well, you need to understand Brahman, you need to understand karma, you need to understand adhyatma, and you need to understand the self." So he said that to her, and she said, "Well, what is Brahman? What is the self? What is karma? What are fruitive activities?" She said, without knowing it, the first half of this verse that we just quoted here. And when she uttered it, the date palm tree broke down, and the Brahmana came out as a Brahmana. And they were given a chance to go back to the spiritual world because she chanted half a verse. This is what Shiva tells in the Gita Mahatmya, that if one chants, even one remembers or chants even one verse of the Bhagavad Gita, that one can be delivered, or even half a verse. So this is an example of chanting half a verse. So, at any rate, I just wanted to mention that. So, at any rate, I hope I've built a little bit of a case. I'm struggling myself to try to think of Krishna always. It's even if you've been a devotee for many years, the mind still has things it'll become preoccupied with. And to try to hear Krishna's name properly and fully is not an easy thing to do. But the more we struggle to do it, the quicker it will become purified. And that's the easiest way to become purified. You can become purified by, getting hit by a bus, or by, having some kind of catastrophe befall you. But much easier, better way is to just chant Hare Krishna, although the mind screams against it. Mind will try to get you to do anything else but chant Hare Krishna with attention, you know. So that's why you have to find a place where you're not going to be disturbed. You have to find a place where, I try to find a boring place, some place where I'm not going to see anything that I've never seen before, so there'd be nothing to attract my senses. And I try to think that while I'm chanting, Krishna's actually here. I don't know it, I don't feel it, because I'm so totally uninterested in Krishna. Saying, what is it saying?
20% of battery left.
Oh, okay, it's okay. I'm about over. Okay, so at any rate, yes.
Maharaj, I was wondering, why do you think, Maharaj, that Krishna wouldn't reveal to his devotees, or to many of his devotees anyway, when their life, when they will have to leave their body? Because if they maybe one might surmise that if they had that knowledge, then it might facilitate their preparation for that moment, and they might act in a more expeditious manner in preparing. Just one way of looking at it. I was curious.
Mm.
Do you have any thoughts about that one?
Well, I think to some devotees he does. Others he does not. Because it depends on how much, you know, devotees can get lost in material world too. You know, we at times are very, you know, focused on spiritual life, and other times we get distracted for one reason or another. And if a person's really gone down the road of wanting to be distracted, then Krishna just lets them be, and they wind up taking another lifetime to finish up their business. So, I think definitely he does do that with some devotees. You know, they find out they have some terminal disease, or they find out that they have some someone that they were close to leaves their body or something like that, and they realize suddenly, you know, old age creeps up on you. You know, you think you're still a young whatever it is until suddenly things start going wrong. You know, and then you think, well, I guess I'm not going to be around forever. You know, that this body has a expiration point, you know, expiration date, and I don't know when that is, but it could be sooner than I think, and probably is sooner than I think. So that's the thing to try to meditate on. All right, so do we still do a kirtan at the end, or does that happen or not?
Sorry, Marsh.
Do we still do a kirtan at the end?
Yes, we do a kirtan, Marsh.
Okay, so let's do that, and I'll shut off my camera because I think it's not going to live through the kirtan.
Do you swear for both? Oh, there you go. Will you play the Mridanga, please?
You press that red button, and then I'll shut all of it, yeah. Very good, Ishwar. Where are you staying these days?
Different places.
Different places.
Different places.
Krishna, are you to assist over here? Is that a call or a battery?
It's a call.
Oh.
Prabhu Vishnu, I'm in the middle of giving class at 26 Second Avenue right now. Okay, Hare Krishna.
I thought maybe it was like something with the video.
No. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So thank you everyone for coming.